Sometimes people compare their smartphones to a professional photography camera and they typically say, you know what, I can take that photo with my smartphone, I don't even need a professional camera. And well, today I'll be answering the question, is there any truth to that, or is this just not for professional work? Let's go. Now there are a few situations where a smartphone will outperform a full-frame camera, at least in that one-shot department, and it's, well, trying to take a wide-angle shot of this, you know, with the nice foreground flowers and the church in the back. So on a full-frame camera, I would actually have to take many photos, stack them together to get everything in focus. But on a smartphone, seriously, I just take one wide-angle shot. Another situation where a smartphone will outperform a full-frame camera is for those close-up shots. Now there's a teeny tiny bit of flower over here, and I'm going to take a photo with my smartphone and my camera, and I don't have a macro lens. Now, the benefit of having system cameras is that you can switch lenses, but here I have three to choose from: the ultra-wide, the wide, and the telephoto, and I'm not really sure which one is going to give me the biggest magnification. But if you're not a macro shooter, then this will most likely give you a more close-up shot compared to a full frame. Now, one major thing that distinguishes teeny tiny sensor smartphones to big sensor full-frame cameras is the dynamic range. Now, this uses computational photography to actually get a seemingly higher dynamic range. Okay, so now that I have a few photographs, let's head back to the studio and really pixel peep the hell out of them. Okay, so I'm back in the studio. I've downloaded the images from my camera and from my smartphone. Now let's dive into Lightroom and take a closer look at which image is better, from the camera or from the, well, three cameras over here. So let's start off first with this church composition. This image is the smartphone image processed on the smartphone, ready to export. And this is the one that was processed on my Sony Alpha 7 IV. Now, if I put these two side by side, I mean, here you can clearly see that the one on the right, the one from the smartphone, looks better. You know, it's a higher dynamic range image, and the internal processing on the Sony is, well, it's not that good. This is why I never shoot JPEG on my Sony camera. I always do the processing afterwards, which means that I always shoot RAW. Now, if I zoom in, well, this is where the difference then starts to appear. And as you can see, the over-sharpening on the smartphone image and the really nice, you know, smooth, sharp image of the Sony full-frame camera. Now, even though the smartphone image is a 50 megapixel image and this one from the camera is only a 33 megapixel image, the difference is, well, quite noticeable. Now, the camera did a better job compared to the smartphone. Now, the next two photographs I want to talk about are these two. So again, on the left, you have the full-frame camera shot, and on the right you have the smartphone, the Samsung S24 smartphone internally processed image. And again, the one on the right looks much more HDR than the one on the left. Again, the Sony processing wasn't really that good. But here, since this was a really contrasty image, I would say the sky is way too washed out. I mean, the whole image is washed out. And if I zoom in to see the details, well, this one is 50 megapixels and this one is 33, so I'm actually going to have to zoom this one a bit more to kind of get an even framing. Well, I would have to say that in terms of detail, well, the Sony camera wins again. If I zoom this quite a lot, so you can see the leaves over here, and if I zoom the other one also, I mean, this is where smartphone processing falls apart, and this is a almost 20 megapixel higher, you know, resolution, and you can see that there is, well, not a lot of detail on the smartphone image compared to a Sony full frame. But that's not what I wanted to show you. Actually, I did take one raw image from my camera as well, and this is this one. Now here I've exposed for the sky, which means that the foreground is really dark, but this way I have a lot of detail in the sky, and if I develop this raw photo myself using my very special preset, I can still then process this a bit more, so just brighten up everything. And since I'm already developing the image, I'm going to develop it the way I would develop it. So just put a gradient mask underneath, pump up the shadows, pump up the whites, maybe even the highlights a bit more. And there you go, a HDR image. Now, if I compare this image, on the left we have the Sony a7 IV raw and then processed in Lightroom. And here we have the Galaxy S24 processed internally by the smartphone. So now if I zoom in, you'll really see the difference. Let me just put this like so. But yeah, I mean, look at the contrast and the detail here in these rooftops. And more importantly, for instance, here in the leaves, now like we had before, or even better here. Now so much more detail, so much more contrast. And if we go up to the trees, like right over here, yeah, I mean, this is like non-comparable. I mean, this is a mushy tree, and this is a really, nicely detailed. Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see the difference in this shot. And again, the one on the right, so the smartphone image, is a 50 megapixel shot, stated by the smartphone, and this one is just 33 megapixels, and it's more detailed than the smartphone. So there you have it, the reason why professional photographers shoot with big cameras compared to smartphones. I mean, the smartphone is going to get you quite far if you want to post just on social media, like you see in this image over here. I mean, it looks good straight out of the smartphone, but once you start picking out the details, and if you want to print things really large, well, then this is a necessary thing. This is also why it costs so much to get a high quality, high micro contrast image, from this compared to, yeah. Now, I do hope that this video answers, at least to some degree, the age-old question as to why can't you just use your smartphone instead of a big professional camera? Well, it all comes down to that image quality and the versatility that a system camera has. And also, I mean, if you would turn up to a professional photo shoot just with your smartphone, ooh, yeah, I can't imagine the reaction of the clients. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. Do consider subscribing to the channel and hit the like button for the algorithm. And if you want to stay on the channel and watch last week's video, then I encourage you to watch this one. Thank you, and I'll see you in this one. Bye bye.